There's not a lot of video game series that can say they lasted for more than 25 years. I mean, Nintendo could say that. They have the Super Mario series, The Legend of Zelda, Fire Emblem, Star Fox, Pokemon, the list goes on and on and on. But then you have the WWE gaming series. For over 2 decades, this series has essentially been the main way people experience wrestling through games. And back in the year 2000, when the original SmackDown came out, I don't think anyone would have thought that would have been the start of the series that is still going on strong in year 2026. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go all the way back to the year 2021 to look at the original SmackDown on the PS1 to see why this game was the start of the WWE gaming empire. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why this game? There was other wrestling games out there. Yeah, WrestleMania WrestleMania 2000 for Nintendo 64, and there was other licensed WWE games before this one with Warzone and Attitude. So why this one exploded instead of all the other ones? Well, we'll look at that right now. According to PC data, WWF SmackDown sold around 980,000 units in 2000. That seems like nothing in today, but back then, that is a lot, especially for a game like this, first time on the PS1. Another thing I'd like to show you is this graph. In the United States, this was the top selling, even though it says, it's funny, it says the best top 10 selling home consoles, even though it shows numbers 11 and 12. See right there, SmackDown was 980,000, which I already said, but right above that was Final Fantasy 9. Only around almost only 8,000 more units. SmackDown got beat. Otherwise, it would have been in the top 10 in the year 2000. So this was the competition that this game was going up against: Final Fantasy, Gran Turismo, Zelda, The Sims, Madden, Pokemon Stadium, Tony Hawk. Again, Pokemon was dominating clearly in the year 2000. But yeah, this was a competition. If it was only 8,000 units away from being one of the top 10 selling games in the United States in the year 2000. So there's that. Again, WWF SmackDown was not the first licensed WWE game. There was many before that, but it was the first one for PlayStation under their new publisher THQ and their developers Yuke's. THQ, again, very familiar with WWE at this point. A year prior, they were doing WrestleMania 2000 on Nintendo 64, but because that was a Nintendo 64 exclusive, they had Aki take care of that. This was the first time Yuke's had a crack at the WWE gaming license, but it's not the first time that they dealt with a wrestling game. We'll talk about that a little later. So that, again, you had a developer who was already experienced wrestling games, so that was already a plus, and THQ publisher already familiar with the WWE branding at that point, a little over a year. What also helped the SmackDown game was it being named after the original SmackDown. This the show itself debuted back in August of 1999 officially, even though there was like a pilot episode back in April. That's another story for another time. So it helped that they had the brand recognition of the SmackDown. They could have used Raw, but I feel like SmackDown was a smart marketing strategy considering that it was airing on UPN. For those who don't know, UPN, now known as the CW, which is funny because it is airing NXT currently, another wrestling show. It was on network TV, not cable TV like Monday Night Raw. So literally anyone could watch as long as you had an antenna. No one uses that anymore. Back in the day, for myself, this was my only way access to watching WWE because my fan wasn't the richest of people. Couldn't afford cable back then. But we had network TV. So primarily during those early years of 2000s, most of my wrestling fix came from SmackDown. So that's, again, having the name attached to a game like that was also probably just good marketing wise. So any random person who just watches SmackDown and they see that in the store, it helped probably with the sales as well. It also just helped being with the PS1 in general. I mean, at the time it was just flying off shelves. It was literally killing the Nintendo 64 and whatever Sega came out. If I remember correctly, they were on the Sega Saturn at the time, and then the Dreamcast would come out like a year later. But PlayStation just killed it mainly because of their CDs. First one to incorporate CDs, so or the main one. Nintendo refused to. PlayStation with their CDs, everyone was just jumping on it, so everyone just had a PlayStation in their house. Yeah, we were able to afford one, so hence why I was able to play this game back then as well. Also helped again, multiplayer. Obviously, some games were more of a single player experience, but since SmackDown was a multiplayer game, it also helped. Again, titles like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, used to play this back in the day. People like having local multiplayer, must stress that, because obviously now everything is online. No one sits on the couch anymore. So again, people just like playing playing against each other instead of just going to the arcade and fighting each other. They could just now sit at home. Obviously, Nintendo 64 had that as well, but it just helped again with PlayStation. It's like the stars aligned. CDs, the PlayStation just selling it. And yeah, stuff again, local multiplayer. This was a game more experience when you having the best experience playing with someone or fighting against someone. And then I think the biggest thing that helped SmackDown really was just the way Yuke's approached it. On Nintendo 64 side, WrestleMania 2000, they went with more of a simulation style, and obviously everyone loved that. With Yuke's, they decided to take a different approach, more of an arcade style. Now, with the previous games, Attitude and Warzone, which was from Acclaim, they had a very weird, and again, I had to deal with them. They had a very weird just way to input controls. You had to do like 4 things just to hit a suplex, 4 things just to hit a body slam, and finishers don't even worry about. You're never gonna hit it if you do not know the button combination. You always had to hit press. But they decided to take more of a just pick up and play approach. One of the best examples I could give is Tekken 3, a alternative to Street Fighter. Even though Street Fighter was very popular, again, the problem with Street Fighter is just the learning curve. Tekken, you could just pick up and play, and I have no proof of this, but I'm assuming you decided to go with that direction with the SmackDown series. And it also helped them that, again, they were very familiar with the wrestling game, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. So just bear with me in a moment. I'm going to be getting the gameplay ready. So just bear with me with just a second. We're going to actually play a match just to show you how easy it was to pick up and play. Now, just to let you guys know in advance, I had to cut my volume down a little bit because, unfortunately, with the way I'm broadcasting original SmackDown, it will blow up my ears. So hopefully you guys can hear it for those who are watching. As I set this up real quick. Alrighty. Appreciate your patience. All right, so again, here's the main screen. Very simple. We'll pretty much get through all of this eventually, but right now we're just going to go to exhibition. Again, very interesting screen. It obviously is based on a SmackDown color at the time. We're just going to go through a singles match. No manager. I'm going to be playing, and for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to be doing Stone Cold versus The Rock. We'll play with some of the other superstars like Undertaker and Triple H a little bit later. And just quickly show you some of the stuff in the menu. You had a match length, but for the purpose of this, we're going to go no longer than 15 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't take longer than that. Interruptions, yes. KO and give up, we're going to have that on for the sake of this part. Rope break will be on. Out of ring, we can go out 10 count. Sure. Arena, just to quickly show you that. The options were the original SmackDown, Raw, and a generic pay-per-view venue. You can also easily change the ring to Raw, SmackDown, Heat, and the 4 pay-per-views that they put in, which was WrestleMania 15 at the time, King of the Ring, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and the Royal Rumble. But for the sake of this, we're just going to go with the original SmackDown arena. I'll probably show the Raw one in a little bit. Now, unfortunately, due to avoiding copyright, I'm going to be skipping the entrances because the way I will explain later, the way the superstars came out, they were walking in front of their Titantrons. So yeah, that's to avoid copyright, if you guys could just play yourself. So just quickly showing you again the control scheme, how very simple. D-pad, walk around, triangle to run, circle to grapple, and I'll hopefully show you in a second, depending on if they're in a fatigue state or not, it'll come out as different moves. X was a strike, square was the reverse, L1 was the finisher, L2 was the reverse, and I believe R1 is both get out the ring and pick up a weapon. That's the only one I don't remember, but during this demonstration I'm going to find out because this game was very easy to master. So we're going to do that right now. Again, just a simple, well, sorry about that leg, very simple suplex. And strike again with KO. Obviously, ideally, the goal is to just knock them out, or you can still get a pinfall or a submission. But a KO is probably going to happen more than likely when you have the knockout one. A KO will probably happen first over a pinfall. I tried to block the Rock, but he got me there. And I'm assuming you're seeing the bar meter go up, because obviously the more you do, damage you take, as well as taunting, your meter will go up. Actually, I don't think this one it does. I might stand corrected on that one. Again, I'm doing, again, unfortunately, the drawback of having a simple control, it was a little bit of not a lot of variety of moves for the wrestler. Like I said, once you get into a groggy state, he'll pull off different moves. Like, for example, if I pick him up and he still stays in that groggy state, and he got me first. Again, it's very fast, but you get the hang of it eventually. Very fast pace. Again, Ukes was going for just, hey, pick up and play, just have fun. Hopefully I can get out of this. The count of one. Like I said, you can still get the pinfall. More than likely, if you hit the finisher once, they're going to get KO'd. They're going to get KO'd. See, that's actually a stunner just as a regular move because he was in a groggy state. And I'm going to his actual stunner finisher, and actually he did not get KO'd. But I am going to pin him, so that's actually very interesting. I did get the pinfall in 2 minutes, so there's that. But normally, for most part, if you do enough damage, one finisher would usually get the KO part. But again, I'm just showing you the and for its time, it's shocking. They were actually have post-match celebration back in 2000 because they would put that in. So there's that. That's Stone Cold. I would like to, unfortunately, have to skip that a little. I don't want to get copyrighted by the soundtrack. So another, this saves. For this part, I'm just going to be the special guest referee. So yes, the special guest referee was actually in the very first SmackDown game. Now, during the course of the next 24 days, you're going to notice this match type disappear. For the sake of this, I'm going to actually have Triple H fight The Undertaker. And I'll just be The Rock. You're going to notice this match type disappear and reappear during the course of the next 24 days. And when that time comes, I will tell you the reasons why. For this demonstration, I'm actually going to have the KO and give up. Actually, I'll keep it on because who knows, I might be able to count the pin. But we'll switch it to Raw this time. And another cool thing that I knew this was going to pop up, depending on if a person has a title, they can actually defend the title regularly in exhibition instead of just season mode. Now, you won't believe me yet, but this feature will not become a permanent thing until a couple years later. And I hopefully you guys can guess which title that becomes. You won't be able to do a regular title match in Expedition for a couple years, officially, permanently, until years later. So we'll we'll talk about that in the coming days. But again, unfortunately, I have to avoid copyright, skip it, because just the way they come out during later games, it's not an issue. But to avoid copyright, since they're essentially just playing the MP4, I can't really show it. Another thing I'd like to point out is you see The Rock is actually wearing a referee attire, so you know that he's the referee. In later installments, this would actually be a very hard thing to do, but we'll get to that. So again, I would just like to point out, as I'm the referee, I can talk a little bit more. Again, the presentation of this. For the time in the year 2000, I thought this was incredible. You got the actual full-fledged Raw arena with, and actually let me count, 1, 2, and I can actually count fast and slow. I can actually control the pacing of it. Back in the day, I was blown away by this as a kid. You would. This was cutting-edge technology in PS1. Because with Warzone and Attitude, though, Raw's War Arena looked nothing like this. In fact, that we had the SmackDown Arena as well. That was actually pretty cool. The crowd, obviously, back in the day, you really didn't think much of it, but clearly they're just cutouts. But you still thought it was just cool to see the crowd and everyone have their sign as well. And as I said with the entrances, they do walk out to them. I wish I would demonstrate them. There are a bunch of them on YouTube, but unfortunately, just to avoid this stream not having any problems, and for the video on demand after the fact, I just will skip them. But they just walk out to them. They were just walking out to nothing, in case you were wondering. And again, for the details of the superstars, for the year 2000, it wasn't that bad. They actually, I would argue, looked a lot better than Nintendo 64 version. It wasn't just me being biased because I didn't have a Nintendo 64. I always had to go to my friend's house to play it. He actually had WrestleMania 2000. But honestly, I mean, if you just ask the regular person, they would say that this looked a lot better than what WrestleMania 2000 was. Even though WrestleMania 2000, people would say it was just more of the pure wrestling factor. I mean, gameplay experience. This is more fast-paced and arcade-like. There's another thing I like to point out. You can actually attack. Even though I'm the referee, I can attack whoever I want. Now, there's a good chance they will attack me back, but you can do that and not get disqualified because, again, they weren't really being realistic here. WrestleMania 2000 was going for more of a realistic. This was just arcade. Do what you want. See, now he's going to try to attack me, but he should probably focus on him. I can also taunt as well, and they have a unique taunt if you're a referee compared to the regular taunts. And now here we go, Triple H doing his pedigree. I don't know if it might be a KO. And it is. See, told you. We didn't get it the first time around, but... And you see him pose, but again, to avoid copyright, I am with the music. We're gonna have to skip that. Now, for create a pay-per-view. I guess the best way to describe this, it is like the earliest iteration of what the series now known as Universe Mode. So we'll just take a quick look at that. Create a pay-per-view, you have the audience rankings, and then actually create your show. Obviously, it would make more sense for me to do this before I show you audience rankings. Create a pay-per-view. For this purpose, we'll just name it SmackDown. Just to show you. So what you basically just do is just like an endless exhibition. You just play exhibition all in one go. It'll just load it up for you. So Test versus Godfather. And then you have Ken Shamrock versus Kane. Then you have the Acolytes versus Edge and Christian. Val Venis versus Al Snow. Tag team match between Rock and Mankind. Again, if they're in contention, you can actually put the title on the line. And speaking of that, let me show you the title holders for this game and its default. I believe, even though I believe Undertaker was actually the World Wrestling Federation champion in the default game. You have Triple H, Chris Jericho, the New Age Outlaws, Val Venis, Big Boss Man, and Tori for the World Wrestling Federation title, the Intercontinental title, the tag team, the European, Hardcore, and the women's. And a special referee, Triple H and Stone Cold, the Undertaker, and again, I could put that as World Heavyweight title. So they actually took rankings seriously, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Not everyone could compete for a title, and we'll just complete it. We'll just skip all of these, and you see they actually had an audience rating. It really doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. You can just look at the tracking. People tend to use this back in the day just to compete with their friends to see who could put on a better show. And then I'll just save that. But yeah, just simple. 2000. This was like good. You'd be surprised how much people like this. I was a huge fan of this. If you were a wrestling nerd. So again, rating the top 10. This will be your shows, the 8.7 audience. So yeah, if you were with your friend doing this, audience crowd for that was 11.0. So it was pretty cool stuff. If you are a wrestling fan. And then speaking of the belts, let's go to the belt record, because this will show you what I'm talking about, the ranking system. So again, Stone Cold is the World Wrestling Federation champion, and again, not everyone could compete. As you can see, only the first and fifth rankings can compete for the title. And you go down and list, and then it opens up to the 10th one if you're challenging for the Intercontinental title. Mankind, for Rock, any person could do it, regardless of your ranking. For the European title, it's 20th, and the Hardcore as well. And the women's, anyone could do it, even though the gender is female. This Friday had no rankings for that because there was only a few divas in it at the time. But yeah, so it goes to the rankings actually mattered, and the recent installments, unfortunately, they hold you to a certain ranking for a title. You can't compete for any of them. In the modern version, which is Universe mode, you can only compete for one at a time in a ranking. But here, as long as you were essentially in the top, you could go for the people who were ranked in the World Wrestling Federation title can also go for the European title. And just to show you guys the rankings, again, Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker. So again, they really took it seriously. They for at its time, it's actually interesting how they implemented this. Might not seem like nothing on the surface, but at the time, it's just cool to see, like, again, like real life, Rock would be in contention for world title if he really wanted to tag with Mankind, who is ranked 6, so he wouldn't be competing for a world title. You can tag with him for the tag title, so if Undertaker wanted to go for the Intercontinental title, he can also do that. So it was actually pretty cool that they were able, something as simple as that works wonders for people who are fans of wrestling. So I just wanted to go off, create a pay-per-view real quick. So one of the main modes you would probably play is obviously season mode. So with season mode, there's actually two parts to this. I'm actually going to show you, you would think I'm going to show you one before the other, but there's a reason for it. So there's two parts of season mode, is season mode and preseason. You would think I'll go to the preseason first, but for this purpose, I'm actually going to show you the regular season mode. There's a reason why. Either do new game or continue. I don't think I have a continue on here, so we're just going with new. Again, you can actually put who you want in here. The highlighted people are people who are currently champions. They're just showing you that. And there's a bunch of other slots like the blue meanie, which I created. We'll get to that. And I'll actually add him in here. I believe I can add him in here. Apparently I can't. Oh no. Can I? Oh, that's how I do it. Oh no, apparently I can. I don't know why. That's strange. I'll try to add him later, but that's not important. We'll just decide on that. Again, Raw is War. I don't think I selected anyone, so let me exit out of that real quick. I have to select someone, otherwise I don't think I selected. Either I was Stone Cold I apologize. We're gonna start a new one for this demonstration. Again, I'm just gonna pick Stone Cold. Yeah, I don't think I selected anyone. So let me, for the sake of this, I'm going to select Stone Cold. And now we're gonna go through the season. Again, it's just a regular house show. I'm gonna go through the matches. Stone Cold is in a regular match with Kane. And for the sake of this, I'm just going to play it out. Sometimes you will get cutscenes. So I'm hoping just to show you one before we get out of this. But for the sake, I'm just going to play this match. Normally I'll skip it. You can see Kane is very, honestly, in terms of characters designs, my favorite character design of the original SmackDown game was probably Kane and X-Pac for some reason. As a kid, I just, again, colors, I guess, I don't know how red Kane was compared to everyone else on the roster. And then X-Pac with its green attire. It just really stood out. Again, just show you also some of the moves. Again, they did have a lot of moves for them. You know, some of them would repeat. They actually made sure each one has specifically. See how this power slam is different than everyone else typically would do? They would do a quick scoop slam, but because Kane is bigger, he would actually do a more delayed power slam or body slam. I keep saying power slam, body slam. And there's the pile driver. Again, depending on the person's state, you will get different moves. I have an Irish whip someone. That was actually pretty. And then you can also reverse the Irish whip. Again, all the reversals are pretty much tied to the square button. And then to get out the ring, you just hit R1. And the referee should be counting. There we go. You have until 10. And we're just gonna get through this match. And I'm just gonna show you one of the cutscenes before we move on. Oh, that's funny. Kane actually fell. And the animations back in the day were very interesting. That's all I'm going to say. And I guess they made sure certain wrestlers had different set. Like, again, obviously the heavyweights, even though there was no weight class in these games, they made sure certain wrestlers had specific type of moves. Like, not everyone's gonna have a Hurricane Rana or high flying moves, so that was another cool thing. And I'm just gonna try to pick him up for a stunner and oh no, see, he wasn't groggy enough. I think Kane's gonna beat me. I guess that's chokeslam, he will. And stunner and a KO. But what I'm going to essentially do is skip through it because you're eventually going to see cutscenes. Unfortunately, the cutscenes made no sense here, but I would just like to show you what they had as storylines. There'll just be random cutscenes that play eventually. Like, see, for example, here. You have Chris Jericho talking, and it says from the comments, so that's it. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever comes of these. They make no sense. The next installment of the game, the cutscenes make sense, but it was just cool to see. I always like that as a kid, just seeing the superstars talk because they didn't have a microphone. In the matches yet, the next game I believe they would as an option, but yeah, so I just wanted to show you that real quick. Now we're gonna switch to preseason because this is where you actually unlock create a wrestler parts, which we'll get to eventually, to unlock the superstars that were in the game. This was pretty much the earliest way of unlocking superstars. And for the sake of this, again, new game, unfortunately you actually have to use a create a wrestler. You cannot use any of the you're not allowed to use any of no, I want to use them. Yeah, use creator. Okay, I'm assuming they're gonna let me use him, or he's highlighted, so I'm assuming I am him. Yeah, I just made some literally some generic person, and Vince McMahon talks to you, and once again, this means nothing. Oh, I'm the Blue Meanie. Okay, never mind. I thought I was creator, but okay, that works too. He was actually one of the unlockable creator wrestler parts. I thought I was myself. No, I am 100, and I can't skip this match, so that's a drawback of preseason, so you're gonna have to play it. You can actually see how Blue Meanie looks. He's one of many unlockable superstars, but via creator wrestler part. There wasn't a dedicated, I guess they didn't have enough time to make a actual model of them by default. You actually had to create it yourself, but their parts are there. Now, I actually gave him a generic move set, so this is not his official move listing. I distinctly remember that. I believe his default is Stone Cold. I think everyone's default is either Stone Cold or the Rocks. Based on what I'm currently looking at, it probably is Stone Cold. And another thing, in preseason, your creator wrestler is very low stat, so it's gonna take a minute to actually beat the guy compared to using a regular wrestler, but that's the whole point. And oh, I thought it was gonna get a 3 count right there. That Blue Meanie. Once again, your wrestler is very weak. So I'll actually be shocked if I win this match. Unfortunately, I have to play, or I could just exit, but I'm good. I'm actually just gonna attempt to win this. Brushing up my skills. There we go, reverse. You see how fast Al Snow got his finisher before I could, and I'm probably gonna get knocked out. Yep. So he actually finished the match for me, so that's nice. So that's actually very nice. He actually finished the match before me. And then we're just gonna skip all of these to go to the next one, but we're not gonna do that. But yeah, I just want to show you season mode preseason. If you're asking yourself if there's an ending to this, there's not. There is no ending to season mode. It just goes on and on. You eventually, I think there's 10 years and you unlock something as well. It's like that's how. There's a lot of replay value in season mode compared to modern games of the WWE gaming franchise. So there is a plus to that. The problem is there's just no ending. It could sometimes be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on who you ask. But as I mentioned with the Blue Meanie, we might as well segue into create a superstar. And when I say Creative Superstar, this is not the version you probably think, because Creative Superstar was as bare bones as it could possibly be in a wrestling game. Normally in modern games, you can literally change anything about a superstar. But for this, the appearance, so actually some cool thing before I get to the appearance, the profile of him, again, you can name them, nickname, age, gender, New York, his hometown, his favorite star, and his entrance movie is Stone Cold. So there's that. The appearance, we'll get to that. Personality, again, very early. So again, for the fighting style, you can select either average, powerful, speedy, technical, roughneck. This very basic stuff. The character, he can be more of a power attacker. His essentially his personality. Attack, rough. This is more of him when he's a CPU, and then again, for European, he's good in European title matches, women's title matches. There's a lot. Very basic stuff, and you can unlock some stuff as well. So just character logic. So this is essentially when you're not playing as him, so that's pretty cool. Abilities, I think I already wouldn't know. Actually, I did not. And this is how you would, again, you would rank them up. You get some points: power, speed, tech, rough, and then completion. So you can actually level up all the way to level 3, I believe. That's the max, I think. Or no, I'm wrong. Just level up as much as you can, actually. And obviously you unlock more, I believe, if you go through preseason, just to level him up. I think we already did the logic. Oh, not yet. His logic, again, grapple, aerial, ground, hardcore, average. So you actually have 2 as well. The moves, again, actually could show you, like I said, it's very basic. Suplex, have 4 moves, and then groggy versions of him, or ground, or no, it actually is the groggy state. Attack, that's pretty much it. From behind, you have your basic 4. Ground, anything but the regular one for the pinfall, for the down pinfall. Turnbuckle, 2. Rope. So it was actually, I mean, it was very basic stuff compared to what you get in the modern games, but then your special, you only have 1. And then you have a favorite move, which is again like how Stone Cold did Stone Cold Stunner without having the his finisher. You can have that as well. So you have combinations of attacks. Again, very basic stuff for the PS1. And then I could just go back to the previous screen. We can look at his appearance. So the main thing. I probably asked myself, why is it showing Stone Cold? Well, again, the options are literally just, for the most part, the actual wrestlers in the games. But like I said, you do unlock creative wrestler parts. But once you get through the entire roster, which we are going to, in a second, there's a few generic, but also again, Blue Meanie, you can make him. He's not the only person. You just gotta get through all this. The loading is it's first time. Could be worse. Actually, shockingly for a PS1, it's not that bad. So here comes generic stuff. I don't know who this was meant to be. Honest to God. So again, generic. Some are actually kind of look like they're from other series. I actually have a dinosaur head. That's pretty funny. And there you go, Blue Meanie. And then you get same thing with the upper body. It's just I'm going backwards now to make life a tad bit more better for everyone. And I believe I unlocked his Blue Meanie should have his regular outfit, which is this one. It's either this one or this one. I want to say it's this one. And then you have his lower body. You know, I don't have Blue Meanie's head. That's funny. I'm 100% sure that is his, and then we go to Blue Meanie's head. Even though I already created him. Boom. You have the Blue Meanie. And that was, again, the height. You can make him a tad bit taller than what he actually is. You can make him a lot more fatter and be more accurate, I guess, if you wanted to. Change his skin color, make him black, blue meanie if you wanted to. And then he have his favorite weapon. This, you're wondering why he has a weapon. Oh, the microphone was actually in this game. I completely forgot. Huh, that's interesting. I thought it was in SmackDown too. You're wondering why it starts with that. I'm going to demonstrate that in a second with the hardcore and falls count anywhere momentarily. Another cool thing to do very early in this game, surprisingly, is the backstage fighting. So we're just gonna exit that. But yeah, that's just to create a superstar. Very basic, but honestly, for the time in the year 2000, not that bad. All things considered, not that bad. We're now gonna look at backstage fighting. So either you can use hardcore or falls count anywhere, but for the sake of this demonstration, we're just going to do falls count anywhere. And for this demonstration, I'm probably going to use Why Not Mankind against, I don't know who's hardcore. We'll use Bubba Ray. And again, you can set whatever arena, but for the sake of this, we're probably, actually, yeah, we could start, because it's now, we can actually, cool thing, you can start in the backstage area. So backstage, you can actually start on top of the set, parking, kitchen, boiler room, corridor, arena 2. It's actually pretty cool. You could do that. And unfortunately, because the way it's set up, you can't start it off in the SmackDown arena, which is very strange because you would think they would prioritize that arena since it's called SmackDown. Which makes me believe that they didn't really finalize exactly what this game was going to be. Probably much later. That's just a conspiracy theory of mine. But for the sake of this, we're actually starting arena. I'm just going to show you how they would go backstage. But you can still have the SmackDown set. Like I said, for the sake of this, yes. Or again, skip the entrances. I won't have to do that in a few days. And there's already weapons right here because unfortunately you couldn't grab stuff under the ring. Not yet. That would happen eventually. So they already had weapons ready to go. Like, so you pick it up. Now the CPU isn't that smart, so you're gonna have to get him out the ring by force. You're gonna have to Irish whip him out. I guess in a sense he would be a lot smarter if you knew not to go outside the ring. You just throw him out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. See, sometimes he will follow you. But you have to, basically what you would have to do if I can get him out. I think one of the easiest ways to do it is you gotta bait him. I believe you could grab him. No, not yet. Horrible demonstration. There we go. Got him out. So it's simply as simple as this. You would just grab him and throw him, and then voila. You're now on the stage. And honestly, fighting on the stage is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. When I played this as a kid, it was just so cool that you were able to just see he's trying to leave, but he knows he can't. So he's gonna try his damnedest. Like I said, CPU wasn't that smart. So, but we're gonna keep going backstage. You can also just block moves regularly. And I believe this is anywhere falls too, so I don't understand why he doesn't want to. See, they're always going to try to go back, which makes no sense to me. Unless if I hit R1, can I just hit R1 and just... No, yeah, I know it. So you're gonna have to follow me, buddy. Whether you like it or not. I love how there's like just a PNG cutout of of the stage when you're not there, and it couldn't fully put out the arena so you can set false count anywhere back then. It couldn't display it while you're up here. That actually is pretty funny. I just noticed that. But again, as a child, you wouldn't notice that. And now we go backstage. Again, just showing you before I could end this match, but I want to show you a little bit. There's also going to be sometimes weapons here, like a mop. And then I love how these little spots, it indicates like you can go there, even though it doesn't look like it. Come on, there's no way. I'm about to say there's no way I was going to try to get to at least show you all the spots before. I believe this would be the kitchen from what it looks like. And it is. Whoa. Again, the CPU isn't that smart. We had to go down. That's interesting how they treat that as a ring. Like, that's essentially, it's a ring without ropes. That's some foreshadowing right there to like weeks from now. That's a huge foreshadowing. Let me try to finish this before he finishes me. Mandible claw. We'll just end it right here on the table. Unfortunately. And this would be considered a KO or submission, I guess. Or no. I guess it is truly false count anyway. Oh, it's false count anywhere, so there has to be a I understand. He probably beat me. Oh no. Let me just pin him right here. It's false count anywhere. Did I have Pinner get up on? I don't remember. How is he getting up so fast? That's another thing. The only drawback of an arcade game. How did he get? What is going on? Here, I'm trying to drink my coffee. There we go. There we go. That should be it. That was just the backstage fighting. Just wanted to showcase that. And I just want to showcase one other arena, which is generic pay-per-view one. Just show what we were dealing with back then. And we'll probably do a steel cage. Or a steel cage. And for this demonstration, we'll pick the Undertaker. Actually, yeah, we'll do the Undertaker versus Triple H. So at least I can show you essentially all the possible realistic match types you'll be going with. And unfortunately, it's not like the modern games where you can have pinfall submission. Unfortunately, you had to escape the cage. For this demonstration, I'll just pick not Heat. We'll just go WrestleMania. And again, unfortunately, you know, copyright, as I tend to say, just can't do that. As you see, the cage is actually very it's almost close to what they were kind of having in real life. Not precisely, but not that bad, all things considered. And you see how the generic ring is actually 4 ways of the entrance, which was very strange. I don't recall any show that they had back then that had a 4-way entrance like that, but I digress. And it's actually pretty cool, even though you saw the cage shook. So the fact that they were able to do that as well for a PS1 game is actually pretty impressive, all things considered. And you can fight. One thing I'd like to point out, though I didn't show it, that again, depending on the superstar, they'll walk out for a person. So Triple H normally would walk out with China, assuming there wasn't a regular, if it was a regular match. Sometimes they'll walk out with their managers, like Paul Bearer or whatnot, if you would assign it as well. I think that's for any wrestler, all things considered. Like, I don't remember precisely. I think SmackDown 2, they would just walk out with whoever, regardless, during the entrance ramp. And I say entrance ramp like there's an entrance ramp in this game. When they were walking out in front of their entrance video is what I meant to say. And basically the way to escape the cage, I believe, is... Oh, let me just get a quick tombstone in so I have a chance to... I believe it is the R1 button. The same way you would exit the ring. But the problem is you're going to have to really beat him up and keep him down. Because otherwise, you're not getting out. Honest to God. See how fast he would get up? That's the problem. So these cage matches were pretty much a crapshoot. Either you'll get him or you won't. We'll see which one of us is able to escape the cage. And then also you could actually go down as well. I totally forgot you could do that. Very unique how quickly you could actually go down. You just hit the cage. There was no like animation of them getting pulled down. Ideally what you would do is hit your finisher and go on the other side of the cage and start climbing. That's the ideal thing you would most likely do. Which I'm about to do right now. Man. There's actually one more match type I would like to show you because literally it's not in any of the current WWE games and I don't understand why. There's one more match type I would like to show you. And it really was like the perfect example of like a party game. And I just don't know why they don't have it. Bush is probably going to win this. I'm not going to let him though. Just a tombstone. And then he just gets right back up like it's nothing. It's so crazy. Like I said, this game is it's a crapshoot. Yeah, we might go to time limit on this one. Another thing I like to point out, again, despite the fact, even though it was just very strange, obviously they did not, for the 90% of this 95, probably even 99%, they did not have the name of the event on the ring mat. They only put it there because obviously they could not, probably did not have the time to make exclusive arenas, which obviously, as you can see, they did not do that. That would not come into the PS2. And you see how Triple H won? This is what I meant. Triple H just straight up won. Triple H just straight up won. It's a crapshoot, it's still okay, but it was fun. It's in a fun way. It's very, especially if you're playing your friend, it's literally just who can just do it quickly. There's one more match type I would like to show you guys. If there's literally not in the current games, it makes no sense why. Yes, there's a King in the Ring, there's a Royal Rumble. What I actually want to show you is special guest referee. Because if you would believe it, where is it? I think, where is it? Survival, right? Yeah, 4-way, and I think you have a special guest referee. No, I could have swore you could have two. I think you got to unlock that. I believe there's two special referees, but you have to unlock that, I guess. I think. Huh? Am I missing? Is that in SmackDown too? Or you have to, either you're gonna, where is it? Or is it a handicap? I remember there was double referees. I might have to come back to you tomorrow on that. It was either this game or SmackDown 2. Huh? Am I misremembering that? My apologies, guys. I was looking forward to showing you guys the two special referees that you can have in one match. I swore it was this game, but it might be SmackDown 2. Huh? Well, there's that. Again, hardcore, there's no point in showing you guys that because you already saw that. I guess I should show you the tag match. Or no, I Quit. That was the other one I wanted to show you guys. I saw it in the corner of my eye. For this, we're going to use famously The Rock versus Mankind, because why not? Or just spice it up a bit, we'll probably do Chris Jericho. Again, you have to actually use the mic. And we'll put both the Intercontinental and European titles on the line, even though none of this matters because we'll go over that a little bit later. Again, unfortunately, can't really show you guys that. I am going to attempt to show you because I have to show. I really want to show you something afterwards, but again, I Quit match. Very simple, beat your opponent, and then you have to use the microphone, which is laying outside, to make them say I quit. You can also make them say I quit on the stage too. It's actually literally falls count anywhere. It was very cool. You use the mic as a weapon, which is why I don't know why I originally thought the microphone was in it in hindsight. I think I swapped it to either two-man special guest referee is in SmackDown 2, and I thought I Quit was in there as well, but I Quit was in the first one. And the special guest referee, the two-person special guest referee, was in the second game, which we'll go over tomorrow. I actually, honest to God, in the 20, as long as I played this game, I never knew you could do that. That's actually brand new to me, huh? I never knew you could do that with the barricade. I never knew the PS1 was capable of doing that. Hopefully, I can just do that again. You learn something new every day. I'm actually surprised. In a replay, if you guys watch that, I actually grabbed him and he slammed him on there. I did not know you could do that. I didn't even know you can interact with the barricade at all in this game. I thought it was until Just Bring It. Neckbreaker there. Makes me believe you might have the Rock's moveset as a great wrestler. We both knocked each other out. Again, the fun of the game. Again, what you would do, you put it, the CV says I quit. And he does not. So the match is not over yet. And you just use this microphone. Jericho trying to go for a pinfall, but that's not going to happen. Oh, the interference aspect. I forgot. See, if a match goes on long enough, your ally will come and help you. Obviously, back here in 1999, Rock's biggest ally, even though he threw him off. That's something off the Royal Rumble. I forgot what it was called. An I Quit match, which is funny because that's the move we're actually playing right now. Mankind and The Rock were actually tag team champions. They come out with 2 finishers. They could really help you change the tide of the match. Sometimes I forget that you can't have 2 finishers, so I thought I could do the rock bottom, but that's as a regular move. Because Jericho, I think, doesn't realize this is not, So you could pull people out the ring. I knew it. I think he's going to do the mandible claw if he gets the opportunity to. And he is. So actually, I'm going to take advantage of that right now. Or maybe Chris Jericho's not going to let that happen. What I am going to do, though, is the people's elbow once I get the opportunity to do that. Jericho's getting me. There we go, people's elbow. As you can see, they just warp in the ring. So it's funny, the whole warping in the middle of the ring when it comes to moves, this would not permanently stop until generations later on Council. But we'll see. We'll get to that point eventually. What's up from Boston? I'm going to mispronounce your name. Is it Meister Ricky YG or is it Mr. Ricky KYG? It's just the way the chat is set up on my screen. I can't really tell from this angle, but I appreciate you stopping by. If you're unaware of what's going on, I am doing a 25-day event going through the history of the main WWE games, and we're going to stop at 2K25. We're just going through how we got to 2K26. So for the next 24 days, we're going through the history of the main WWE games. I'm just showcasing some of the matches that were in here that you wouldn't believe were in here because, ironically, this match is a brand new match. I would like to point that out after the fact. I mean, I'll point, actually, if he gets me to say I quit, that's going to be hilarious. But all the work I just did was my favorite. So, I mentioned, again, I never had a Nintendo 64 growing up. I had to go to my next door neighbor. When I say next door neighbor, I mean I had to walk a block to my next door neighbor. He had WrestleMania 2000, and then vice versa. Since I had a PlayStation, he had a Nintendo 64. We go to each other's house. I only went over his house a few times to play WrestleMania 2000. I just could not. Again, I will admit, I could not get into that game. I know you said No Mercy, but WrestleMania 2000, they're interchangeable. I mean, in terms of gameplay, they're both the same. I understand why people like the game. As a kid, again, it's just me being a dumb kid. I just personally could not understand the control scheme. It's no fault of the game. It was just what the game was on Nintendo 64. The PlayStation sold me because after coming from Attitude and Warzone, the SmackDown one was very easy and pick up the play, which I did mention earlier in the stream. I could just play. And then even the thing is, my neighbor also agreed. Like, we were just able to just fun and just pick it up. He learned in one match what to do, and he was beating me every time. I tried to hit this people's elbow and make him say I quit. I believe the difficulty is on normal, by the way. So either I really suck at this game, or just difficulty on this was very good for his time. Now let me get the microphone, and he should be saying I quit. There we go. Which is the equivalent of saying give up. Now, I don't know why it's freezing. Would you believe me if I told you that this match type is now being advertised as a brand new match type in the current game 2K26? We'll get to that eventually in the coming days. We'll talk about that. The series has been notoriously known for taking out match types for no reason. So yes, even though we just played this match type in the year 2000, you have physical proof that the I Quit match and special guest referee, actually, the King of the Ring, special guest referee, I Quit, these matches are gonna disappear at some point during this during the next weeks or so, and then they're gonna come back and they're gonna be advertised as new. We'll get to that when we get to that. I just want to point out that you're not crazy. You just saw an I Quit match on a game that, on a game of a system that came out in the year 2000. I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to do one more match, which is the Fatal 4-Way Hardcore match. I forgot to do that. Where is it? Hardcore. I'm blind. I am clearly blind. There it is. No, so I'm not crazy. So, okay. Hold on. Exhibition, survival, where's survival? 4-way dance. I believe you could do hardcore rules. Let's see. I'm just gonna be stone cold. Do I have to unlock that? It's so confusing. Or is it under a different? See, now I'm curious. Otherwise, I might go to tag match. Something's not, the math ain't math in here. Or is it King of the Ring? No. I guess I'll just briefly show you King of the Ring. Again, no, I don't wanna. We'll just do this. Just skip. Again, just, you do go all the way until the end. And Stone Cold is your winner. Heading out, keep up the great work. I appreciate that, Meister. Again, I don't know if you had one of the next 24 days. If you have a favorite wrestling game, I'm probably gonna go through in the next 24 days of the main WWE series. I must reiterate. So, I am perplexed. Either I'm not looking hard enough. No, I am. I'm definitely looking hard enough. Hardcore. I'm pretty sure you can have a hardcore fatal 4-way match, but either I'm just not seeing it. I think I think you might have to unlock those matches. I think you actually have to unlock those matches, which is interesting. Don't quote me on that. For some reason I'm seeing matches, either I'm misremembering them from SmackDown 2. You understand why I'm misremembering them once we get to SmackDown 2. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. I could have swore I recall playing hardcore matches back on Fatal 4-Way hardcore matches on the PS, on the original SmackDown. But I just want to show you guys one more match, which is a tag team match, and I guess we'll just use actually apparently there's like 9 different combinations of them. We will just use a actual tag team. For the sake of this, we are going to I'll just use Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy. I was always a Matt Hardy fan. My brother was always a Jeff Hardy fan. I just liked Matt more than Jeff. I don't know why. It's so strange. And we'll fight Edge and Christian because why not? And then I'll go over the roster once we get through that. I guess I'll just show you. I just wanted to show you at least some of the main ways people would play this game. We'll just do SmackDown, because why not? Oh, again, they're going to show Titan. I'm going to show, I'm going to try to show you, because it's something I want to point out. I definitely want to point out. Because there are some limitations to this game I haven't talked about. Now we're going to do, again, tag team match. Although my face cam's in a way, you should see Chris on the other side. Again, he would attack him. And you could do the same to the partner. And the partner will go after the other one if necessary. And he will just come in the ring, because there's no disqualification in tag team matches back on PS1 days. Apparently. And again, to change target, you hit R2. Or L2. No, R2. And cameras, I want to again talk about, I forgot to mention cameras. Outside of if it, in regular one-on-one match they do camera cuts. Hopefully you noticed that. I completely forgot to point that out. Again, they really try to go for that T presentation style. Again, for PS1, it was able to kind of pull it off. I thought those camera cuts were so cool when you hit your finisher and they did it. It was just, I always thought it was cool. You just knock off your opponent. Were double team moves in this game? I guess we're going to find out in a second if I can get over there. I guess I won't find out. I'm going to tag in Jeff Hardy again. Everything essentially is the R1 button when it comes to getting out the ring, tag, all that good stuff. Oh, hit the double whammy on that one. I believe Christian is the main person. And again, despite the fact that it's a regular tag team match, there was no disqualifications, so they really didn't enforce the rules of the actual matches back in the arcade styles of of these games. So they were very lenient, and if you notice, there's no referee in these matches unless there's a special guest referee. Jeff is very fast in this game. Problem is, you're gonna have to always switch control, and you sometimes face your partner for no reason. I believe there was tag team moves in here. I'm going to try to do it, but the only way you could really do it, you had to Irish whip them and then do it. He had the opportunity actually. They really like switching. Again, unfortunately, the limitations of this game, they don't automatically switch even if you get attacked. So it is very confusing sometimes. I'm just gonna let Jeff Hardy do his thing. There we go. Again, I haven't pointed this out yet, and I am eventually. There's been, even though again, this game is great, nothing wrong with it. Probably the best wrestling game on PS1, outside of its sequel, of course. But there are definitely some limitations to this game, which I'll point out after this, once I go over the roster. I just wanted to keep that all in one section. And you're actually visually and hearing it at the same time, but I just won't point that out yet. And unfortunately, you're gonna have to literally switch. It doesn't do it automatically for you. Despite the fact that I attacked him again, it's a double team. Accidentally attacked his own partner, man. Gonna be me. I don't think KO is actually on here. You can really do back and forth with those reversals. And he still got me. Damn. I don't 100%. I'm not 100% sure there was double team moves in the first one. I want to try to get over. That's my main goal, is to try to get over there and do one before this match ends. Alrighty. I guess the way I threw him, I can't really set it up yet. Try and get him in a way where there we go. And no, I guess there was no tag team moves back then. Yeah, I don't think there was tag team moves yet. Kind of made the whole tag team match pointless if you ask me. And there was no tag team moves. I made the whole thing pointless. Then you get the Swanton. Very bad collision detection, but you could definitely hit the Swanton. Alright, this match is probably not going to end anytime soon, so we're going to move on. I should add is KO, but I don't think you do KO in tag team matches. But I just want to point out the roster, even though I haven't neglected to talk about that this whole time. So, it was about like over 30 characters on the roster. You had, and the way they, instead of setting up in alphabetical order, they decided to do it by order of importance, I guess is the best way of describing it. So we had Stone Cold, The Undertaker, The Rock, Triple H, Big Show, Mankind. And then you see, essentially, you could tell these were the main eventers, and then we get to the mid card. X-Pac, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Kane, Chris Jericho, Val Venus, Godfather, D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, Ken Shamrock, Big Boss Man, Al Snow, Hardcore Holly, Steve Blackman, Test, and then from here you get to the tag teams, Edge and Christian. So this, see how they separated? This was all the mid card, and then you'll get to the tag teams, Edge and Christian, and Gangrel, because he was part of, it was actually a trio, which I don't think the Bruise entrance is even in this game, but I digress. You had the Acolytes, Matt and Jeff, the Hardys, the Dudleys, Bubba Ray and Devon. Then you just had other Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. I guess they are a tag team in a sense, but obviously this one had the, you know, the corporate people at the end, and then you had the women's, China, Tori, and Deborah, just three, and then you had one manager, Paul Bearer. I guess you can argue China is also a manager because she comes out with Triple H on occasion, and Deborah wasn't really a wrestler, so you can argue she was a manager as well. Yeah, Paul Bearer, yes. One of the few times you can literally play with Paul Bearer and he wouldn't just be a manager in the game. You just play as anyone. And then you have generic superstars I made. One of them is the Blue Meanie, but again, that's how the roster was. We'll get to the omissions in a second, but I just want to showcase the roster there. Now, just take a quick break. Take a quick break from that. So I had that second thing up. Let me actually mute this because this is still going to be going on in my ear, unfortunately. I'm not actually done with this game yet. One thing I actually wanted to point out, if you will indulge me for one moment. We talked about Ukes, right? As I said, Ukes is not new to wrestling games. It's not their first rodeo. They've actually developed wrestling games before. Now, people, I mean, it was always a misunderstanding that people thought that the game that it was based, SmackDown was based off of, was Power Move Pro Wrestling, which is a completely different game from the SmackDown series. It's actually not based on that. It's actually based off of a game that never came over here in America, known as the Simple series. So you see, they actually had two wrestling games. It wasn't the one that people knew about. It was actually one that was only exclusive in Japan, which was the Simple series Pro Wrestling. It was low budget, so they actually didn't even use their, you know, more money put into it, clearly. And I think part of the reason why, because if you look at Power Move Pro Wrestling, it's more, again, simulation. I think with Uke's first crack at wrestling, especially for the WWE license over here in America, they want to make sure people was able to play it without any problems. So that's probably why they decided to go with the Simple Pro Wrestling engine instead. And we're actually going to look at that momentarily. So if you just bear with me one moment as I pull that up. All right. So credit to the Video Game Museum, which is an appropriate name. We're going to actually look at some gameplay. And when we look at this, you're going to be quite surprised with what we look at. But credit to him. I muted it because, again, I unfortunately don't know how copyright is of the soundtrack of this game. But we're going to look at some quick gameplay. And once we load it up, or once he loads it up, you're going to start to see some similarities. Let me skip actually a little bit. In the menu itself, but once you get into the actual game, even at, see that loading screen? You notice, I just want to point that out. Damn, it's fast. The loading. That is literally the same loading icon and asset that they used for the original SmackDown game. They just borrowed it and put it over there. And as you see, as we looking at the gameplay, you can pretty much see precisely where the original SmackDown came from. Did you find it fascinating that the game that started the whole SmackDown series is based off of a budgeted game? I always found that fascinating. And for those who don't know about it, now you do. Now, as you can see, they clearly didn't keep some of the UI elements of it, but you could just tell by the camera angles and the moves, some of them, that it was heavily used as their base. They pretty much just, when I mean heavily, pretty much they just swapped out this with the actual, you know, real life wrestlers. And if you look in the crowd, I would like to point this out once I get better frame. If you look in the crowd, actually, hold on, better angle. If you look in the crowd, it's very faint, but when he moves, that's actually the SmackDown. I mean, that's actually the WWF logo. So it makes you wonder how far along. It's almost as if they were, again, this was a budgeted game. And if you actually look in the debug menu of this game, there's name files of this, and we'll actually look more into it a little later. I believe it's this game, or it might be another game. One of them actually, if you look in the debug menu, actually has some names and stuff that is related to the SmackDown game. So you see how Yuke's was pretty much already developing the SmackDown game. You see the WWF logo right there, despite the fact this never came over here in America. I'm assuming this was just a testing ground to test the engine of this game, then use it actually for when they use it for a SmackDown release in America for the American audience. And then 3. But yeah, I just wanted to showcase that a little bit. This, again, people thought it was the other one, which was the Power Move Pro Wrestling. This one right here, but it was actually just a budgeted game that they decided, which was this one, to base the original SmackDown one, which again, I get it. I don't know much about Power Move Pro Wrestling, but I'm assuming it was more simulation based. They wanted to make sure anyone could just pick up and play SmackDown. They decided to use the budgeted version of the Pro Wrestler one instead. So I always just personally found that fascinating. And then again, that's why we're switching. Indulge me for one moment. We're going to switch back to gameplay. Alrighty. So, a couple things I would like to just point out. I'm actually going to attempt, if you will, let me just switch over here real quick. I'm actually going to go into options real quick and cut off the sound if I can. Music volume silent for a second, because I'm actually going to try and play the entrance video because I want to point out something. Remember, The Rock should be both the Intercontinental and European champion. Could beat Chris Jericho in the I Quit match. So we're going to actually look at his entrance for a second. Hopefully, if I play it in this screen, I should not have an issue with content ID. I know it's weird because just unfortunately the way the entrances are, they showcase the full MP4 video. So I'm just trying to just avoid this stream getting taken down. And you know what? We're going to have Stone Cold. We're going to have all 3 belts. And none of this matters, as you can see in a second. None of this matters. But yes, again, I can actually at least show you the entrance from this angle to just avoid copyright. The Rock is coming out. And it does say he is the Intercontinental Champion, but no title. Unfortunately, that was one of the limitations of the game. There was no championship. The only part of the championship is literally that belt record I could show you in the ranking. That's the only time you ever see any picture or PNG file, I should say, of the actual championship. See, Stone Cold is World Wrestling Federation champion, but yet for some reason, he's not showing it. So again, as a kid, I personally never had an issue with this. Honestly, you never notice it when you're just playing the game, because with Warzone Attitude, they didn't have the belts either. So there was that. And so yeah, that's another thing. But now I can actually switch to the gameplay. Now you see, I don't have the music playing, right? But you also notice something. There's actually no commentary in this game. Commentary would be a thing into the PS2 version. And let's say it was a rough first start there, but we'll get to that in the coming days. But you see, there's just the crowd noise. The whole time you were just listening to the soundtrack of the game, which is a very good soundtrack, honestly. It's perfectly fine to listen to a variety of songs. But once you cut off the sound, you see how dead silent it is. So it is kind of jarring. Me and my brother, we always played it with sound, so we never noticed it. And again, we never noticed there was no commentary to the game, because sound just, it's kind of one of those things that the illusion of something that you don't know it's not there until you really look at it. And there's actually no announce tables either, so in this game. Yeah, it is kind of jarring. Just wanted to point that out. Another thing, as I already said, with preseason, you can only do one creative wrestler at a time, so there's that as well. So you go, that's pretty much single. Like you can only that's just pretty much just single player. Regular season, you can have up to 4 people, and you guys can have fun. But preseason, creative wrestler, only one creative wrestler per time, so you're just grinding that out yourself. And one more thing I forgot. What was it? Oh yeah, there was no as I already pointed out with creative wrestler, there was no dedicated unlockable superstars. You actually had to unlock the creative wrestler parts of the unlockable superstars, and we'll get to those unlockable superstars momentarily. There's a list of them, and that's pretty much it. I just want to point out some of that stuff again. As a kid, you don't notice, but now it's like, yeah, it's quite jarring that there's no commentary in this game. But I didn't expect it. Again, it's a PS1 first crack at it. Was there any commentary in any of the wrestling game? I believe the only commentary I distinctly remember in a wrestling game, even though it was very faint, was WrestleMania arcade game, which was from Acclaim. Oh yeah, and Attitude of Warzone. They were so bad though that I completely forgot that they had commentary. I guess I think they didn't want to half-ass it, so I gotta at least give them credit for that. So there's that. Maybe indulge me for one moment. Will I get the next part? One second. All right. So now we're going to actually look at, thanks to the cutting room floor, we're actually going to look at what could have been more of the original SmackDown game. This is a great website where pretty much the whole point is they go through some certain stuff, prototypes. There's a prototype info, which you're going to look at momentarily, but we're going to look at some stuff that, again, it could have been a completely different game. For example, the hidden and unused cutscenes. If using a Game Shark, you can actually, there was a lot of cutscenes that they actually cut out that weren't in there, like the brown bull symbol. Essentially, even though these cutscenes played little with the story, they were playing around with the story. Again, the cutscenes mattered more in the next game. These just played out and meant absolutely nothing. It's almost like they was beta testing an actual season mode with story, and you can fully see its vision in the next game. Again, there was a ministry symbol for Undertaker. We'll actually quickly play that. Show you guys. Again, it's not in the final version of the game. Once again, just not in the games. It's pretty interesting, though. There was a singles title stolen. Again, we probably could have actually saw a championship, but it's just not there. And tag title stolen, but once again, there's no championships. The broken bloodbath. So again, with the Brood, but I don't think they have a triple entrance. So, and the referee reverse decision. There's cutscene that, and then this is always an interesting one to me. For this, the DNY file. For some reason, SmackDown has this in its disc. For some reason, it just doesn't make any sense. It has nothing to do with SmackDown. The only reason why it has any existence to it is because this game was made by Ukes. So, and it was one of the last games that they made before fully focusing on the SmackDown series with WWE. So for Evil, yeah, they call it Evil Zone, right? So they just kept it on there. And then there's unused audio. There was a fight announcement, which I don't know what that was about. Let's hear this real quick.
Fight!
There's that. And that's how the crowd would have sounded. Would have added more audio, miscellaneous unused text, and there's some information of US release, Japanese. Damn, the Japanese got it way late. unused graphics. Again, belt record. This is how it could have looked. It originally called a group of 3 people. This is what they was originally called. Superstar lift. And then Jeff Jarrett. Now you're probably wondering why Jeff Jarrett's here. Let's read what it has to say about Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett's mugshot and name alongside other selectable superstars is, again, it's in the file. He was supposed to be in this game. Like I said, it was in the debug menu. See, I knew it. I wasn't crazy. But they cut him out. So he was supposed to be in between Bubba Ray and Devon. And then this, Warzone. Obviously, Raw's in the game, but the second hour, Warzone, was not. Apparently, they had every intention of putting that in there, but they did not do that. And also forgot to mention the Japanese release that was known as the Exciting Pro Wrestling Series, as you can see right here. I think they stopped that with SmackDown vs. Raw 2006. So there's that. And then I think there's a slight prototype. So again, the prototype version of this game compared to the final release. You see, this is how it looked originally from January 8th build. So only about 2-month difference between this and the final version, which again goes back, and this screen kind of confirms. You saw how Jeff Jarrett's model. Let me go back to that. Jeff Jarrett's model. You see how it has that? When I his model, the PNG, I mean the picture of his roster slot, it's very similar to that. So again, Jeff Jarrett, they clearly had every intention. They just took it out, and then the lineup that you see is very different. Stone Cold has Devon and Bradshaw above him, and then here with Stone Cold is Paul Bearer and Deborah. So that's actually interesting. So the actual order, I think they slightly switched it up. As you can see, Big Show. So the original order was Stone Cold, The Undertaker, Rock, Big Show, Mankind, Kim. Essentially, it was quite clear there was no actual ranking in the roster positions, but then they corrected that in the final version where they put it essentially in tiers. The main event, there was essentially, they put whoever. Matt and Jeff were the only, so it's basically Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Jeff and Matt were the only people in the same positions as the final version. There was no rhyme or reason in the prototype version of who was where what, but clearly they have established a tier. Main eventers, mid-carders to lower mid-carders, then the tag teams, then you had Vince and Shane, the women, and then Paul Bearer. See, there was like no, and once again, I believe they said Jeff Jarrett was in between, but it doesn't show it here. So that's very interesting. Prototype, the only slight difference, as you can see, hopefully I can pull a picture of this up. Can't make it any bigger. Nope, can't make it any bigger. So essentially, the only big difference between the prototype and the final version of the HUDs, obviously, you see this was yellow-ish. I guess you could consider yellow. There was a blue version of that. And then the Godfather, they had in his entrance, they actually had THQ logo in it for one of the hose. Again, table and caskets. Even though this was not in the final version of the game, they would be in the next game. So, and again, the next game is a very interesting story. There's a lot of stuff interesting in the in the sequel, which is the only game that is a sequel to a in the WWE main series. After the next game, all the other ones are standalone. I mean, like the naming wise, they're just standalone. Again, the casket and the table, they were not in the final versions of this game. We did not get that until the next one. So apparently, holding triangle lets you do I mean, you can actually break out of a post-match celebration. You hold triangle. That never happened. Both players should select the same wrestler, so you have 2 duplicates in the same match. Again, the debug menu. There's stuff right there. And Jeff Jarrett was in it in the Simple Pro Wrestling series, which is based on the earlier build of the game. Yeah. It was the wording of this was different. Big Boss Man, typos, they're prototypes. And apparently Meet and Draws was in the prototype version of this game. And Psychosis, at least his mask, was in this game before being taken out. So you could actually probably create Psychosis. I don't know who this was supposed to be, honestly. Bunch of stuff there. The options menu, again, slightly different, just arrangement of, you can actually change, this is very interesting to me. You can actually change the difficulty during the game, which I would not know how that would work. That is very interesting. You could change the you could change the entrance. You can actually change the difficulty of the game. And then there was a dual shock option. I don't know what that would mean. What would happen there? And then the title holders were a little bit different compared to the final version. Big Show, because again, it was just trying to keep up to date. Big Show was the original World Wrestling Federation champ. Chris Jericho kept it. Val Venus, Big Boss Man, The Rock and Mankind was originally tag team champions, but then Road Dogg and Billy Gunn had it. So pretty much that was the debug portion, or the cutting room floor part. I always just find this stuff personally interesting. I always want to look at what could have been part of the game, like stuff that was heavily advertised in the second game was very well could have been put in the first, but for whatever reason they had, like, again, the steel steps is there, shopping cart, just not in the final version of this game. I guess they just wanted to make sure, I guess they didn't fully test, see if it was working. They want to make sure they put out a semi-working game. Can't say that to current games nowadays, but in the series, but they want to put out a semi-perfect game. One moment. Actually, there's one more thing I would like to show you guys. Which is probably the Royal Rumble. I just want to show you how it was done. So if you can just bear with me one moment as I set this up. I first cut back on the sound. It does sound kind of weird without having the music. There's actually 5 soundtracks. I believe I had it at normal. So if it's too loud now, just let me know. I apologize. Actually, you know what? Just to play it safe, we're just gonna put it at minimum. I actually do. No, it was definitely at normal. I hear it. It was 100% at normal. Make sure it's saved. One more thing I want to show you guys. The Royal Rumble. I'm not even gonna bother playing because I'm gonna get eliminated. So, and how they, unfortunately, again, we're used to having 8 people in the ring, but back in the PS1 days, actually you could, interesting. I highly doubt that was gonna work, but Triple H is not getting all those finishers that early. You gotta work for them. And Stone Cold, why not have all your, getting a realistic Royal Rumble? Yeah, everyone else is, see, cool. You can, I believe you can actually, select everyone in it, I guess. How would the Royal Rumble work? This is weird. Well, if I didn't, actually, I don't know. Just randomize it? I don't know. You can select superstars at random. Or this is just the order? This will select all the superstars. Well, obviously I want all the superstars. I'm so confused. So I guess there's not, you can only have certain people in it? Whatever. I just want to showcase the Royal Rumble. So weird. I apologize. I don't know why there's some of that is glitching. That's why I just skipped the entrance for the most part. See that now loading? Right from the simple series. Exact, like literally they just placed it lower. So again, I can actually, by pressing select, as you can see, I can pick whoever I want. I guess they want me to be Undertaker. See, The Rock's already eliminated. That was fast. And it's pretty much just immediately they're going to get someone else. And it takes a minute to load. Now, I want you to look at that loading time. So how fast that was? You would think it would be better in the next game. But I'm going to show you why. Tomorrow. And then you see that you can briefly hear their sound. The sound of the person. Unfortunately, again, the way it was set up, it can only be in the, which is very strange. It was in the Raw is War arena, despite the fact they had a generic pay-per-view arena. But again, quickly people get eliminated. Actually, I'm just playing as Undertaker right now, see who I can eliminate fast. And obviously, you can see Tori. I mean, is this Tori? No, it's Deborah. Deborah's in the ring. Even though there's all male wrestlers, because intergender wrestling was a thing in these games. You could literally fight whoever you wanted. We'll eventually get to the point where you can't. And that was more to do with the presentation of real life WWE, why they had to stop doing intergender. But for a lot of the beginning games, you could do intergender wrestling, and it just recently came back. I say recently, I mean literally a year ago it came back. Unique reversal there by the Undertaker. I just want to see how else comes out. Again, because Royal Rumble actually had a very unique throwing a person out the ring. I just want to get to 10. And now Undertaker's out. Actually, while this is playing, I can pull up something. One second, guys. Yeah, I just want to see who the 10th person is going to be. And Road Dogg. But yep, that is pretty much how the Royal Rumble was. Again, I just really wanted to show that because the loading time, it was, again, for PS1, very, very simple. Obviously, nowadays, they just come out. But you're going to see in the next game, which is tomorrow, that's not the case. But again, there's reasons for it. So yeah. The one thing I want to show you guys real quick. All right. Let's switch to presentation, but just bear with me one moment. Again, I gotta mute the sound of this. All right. Again, I wanted to show you guys, thanks to the credit to SmackDown Hotel. Again, amazing website for wrestling fans. In terms of games, just other stuff. Again, there's 36 characters in this game. I already pointed out the roster, but now you can see in alphabetical order. Good. I mean, honest to God, I thought this was a back then, I thought it was a pretty big roster, but I wanted to show you again the additional superstars you can lock via creation mode, even though I didn't show them. The additional wrestlers were Ivory, Albert, Jacqueline, Viscera, Midian, Gerald Briscoe, and Pat Patterson. And also pre-season unlock, which is Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, Stephanie McMahon, alternate attire for Stone Cold, and the alternate attire for The Rock. So in total, if you ignore the alternate attires, there was 36 people in the base game. And if you count the creator wrestlers, so 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 46 total wrestlers in the game. Make sure I had my math right. Yeah, 46 wrestlers if you do not count alternate attire Stone Cold and alternate attire for The Rock. So I would say that was a pretty big roster. Again, it's dated for its time. This name's gonna, spoiler, this guy right here is gonna disappear in the next game, but then he kind of doesn't. We'll get to that tomorrow. So does, where's the other one? Is this not in alphabetical order? There he is. So does this guy right here. He disappears as well. It's very strange. Although the reason for him makes a lot more sense than him, but we'll get to that. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. But again, other than that, just some final thoughts. We can just talk about the, I don't know why I quit out of that. 1 second, guys. Bear with me. I don't know why I would quit out of that, actually. Yeah, GameSpot. There was a review from GameSpot, I know. Luckily, we still have, actually, hold on. There we go. Luckily, they still keep this stuff on the internet. It was in the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. I didn't have to use that. SmackDown review. I think this best described it. The little things that... Why is that not zoomed in? The little things debuted in SmackDown, such as a never-ending season mode and inklings of a plot, which there was not, really make the game feel fresh and new. Hopefully THQ will expand on these new developments in the future and include some speech as well. Spoiler alert, that wouldn't happen until years later. It's great to finally see a new wrestling engine that actually brings something new to the table, and all wrestling game fans, even those who are a little blunt out of other games in the genre, should find something in WWF SmackDown that makes it worth the price. And like I said, for us who are on the PlayStation, me, this was a breath of fresh air. We thought wrestling sucked because of what was offered on the PlayStation. If you ignore WrestleMania Arcade game, we had stuff like Attitude and Warzone. And not that, I mean, objectively, they weren't bad games. They were functional. It just did not play like how you think a wrestling game would. You had to do 5 different button combinations to hit a suplex. Like, can I just hit a suplex without a problem? And thankfully, Yuke's understood that on the PlayStation side, and they developed and they made a game where just anyone could just pick it up and play. Literally anyone could play this game. My mom could probably play this game and just understand it. That's how simple they made it. One more review I'd like to point out from IGN. I think the very first, because again, I think his first, at the beginning, you could see how they were complaining about, yes, PlayStation, wrestling fans, your guy has arrived. Yes, because it's like, again, PlayStation fans were suffering with the what we had with Attitude and Warzone. Again, they were not bad games. They just weren't the wrestling games that we wanted to play. Where you had the Nintendo 64 WrestleMania 2000. And I think his verdict was pretty much summed up again. You will buy it. There's nothing that I could say to change that. I also, fun fact, I did have ECW Hardcore Revolution as well. But it was a great game. This is, again, if it wasn't for this game, I don't think the world of wrestling games would probably look a lot different if this game did not work out. It's crazy. Final thoughts as we wrap up here. Let me just take this off. It's crazy that this game, right? This game. If it wasn't for this game, the wrestling scene would look a lot different of the modern day when it comes to wrestling games. Could we have been using the Yaki engine? And the environment? Would Aki be the sole developers? Ukes? I mean, they took a gamble. Instead of using an engine that they had with the Power Move Pro Wrestling, whatever it was called. What was it called? Power Move Pro Wrestling. Yeah, I had it right. Instead of using that, they decided to use this as a budgeted. They decided to use the budget engine. I mean, the engine of a budgeted game that they made just to test it out, and it paid off for them because again, it was a hit. Everyone used. I showed you earlier. Final Fantasy IX only beat it by around 8,000 units. So if it was for Final Fantasy IX, SmackDown would have been in top 10 best-selling video games in the year 2000. That's how well this series did, and because of that, it showed that yes, you can have a fun wrestling game other than WrestleMania 2000 on Nintendo 64. People on PlayStation can finally enjoy a good wrestling game. And I said the sequel, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, it's arguably, if it wasn't for the sequel paying off, who knows how the direction of where WWE games would have gone. But this sequel arguably is probably one of the best wrestling games of that generation, not just on PlayStation, just for that whole generation. I know No Mercy exists. Yes, I know. But in terms of the PlayStation, arguably the best wrestling game of all time, SmackDown 2, hands down. And the crazy part about SmackDown 2, normally a sequel takes a year, as you come to know. This only took months. When I say months, I mean SmackDown came out, I 100% believe, came out in March. This game came out around September or October, either. Actually, let me just double check. Why am I second guessing here? SmackDown 2 came out in November. So literally not even a year. And they developed a sequel. It was a gamble, but they made it work. So who knew, as I said, who knew that a budgeted wrestling game that they made would work out so well for use? And I don't even think they probably thought it would. And then they had quickly developed that sequel. And it's arguably probably the greatest wrestling game of all time. Again, my personal experience, this was the only wrestling game I played. Even when SmackDown 2 came out, I actually sometimes went back to SmackDown for whatever dumb reason. I think because I got tired of season mode loading in SmackDown 2. Again, we'll talk about that eventually tomorrow. We'll talk more about it because one of the main selling points of SmackDown 2 was the season mode and Hell in a Cell. Also, a lot of characters, forgetting it came out 2000. Again, we were missing some high profile characters like Kurt Angle. Where's Eddie Guerrero? Where's Rikishi? People who defined the Attitude Era. They were all in SmackDown 2. And you saw with the prototype build. The casket match. It was supposed to be in the original SmackDown, but they made sure it was in SmackDown 2. So, and you want to know how much SmackDown 2 sold? We gotta come tomorrow. But yeah. For those who are watching live, I appreciate it. And for those who are watching on demand, I also appreciate it. This is a 25-day event where we're going to go through the entire history of the mainline WWE games to see how we got to 2K26. I would like to reiterate, we're actually not going to be playing 2K26 yet. This is just a story of how we got to 2K26. Because I always find the story is a lot more interesting. But was the old saying, the journey is sometimes better than destination. The journey of how we got to 2K26 is sometimes a better and interesting story to tell than actually talk about the current game. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So if you're interested, I'm going to be here unless something personal happens in the next 24 days. I'm going to be here every day, and we're going to go through the entire history so you can see how the game that you see on the left of me evolved into 2K26. So hope you guys enjoyed. Anything else I want to show you guys? I forgot. Just want to double check. I think that was pretty much it. But yeah, original SmackDown. If it wasn't for this game, I don't know how WWE games will be looking in the year 2026. But THQ took a gamble with Fuchs, and they just knocked it out the park. So thank you guys for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with SmackDown 2 Know Your Role.